we all know that the last 10 years we've had a pretty rocky road in the economy. I mean, back in 2007, the bottom started to fall out, and by 2009, we lost over 3% in GDP in the state and lost over 300,000 jobs. What's interesting is that if you look at 2007, and then you look again at 2016, so before it began and after it's pretty much all over, and you look at, what counties did good, what counties didn't do so good, what you find is rather stark. If you take just two MSAs in the state, Charlotte MSA, which is made up of 7 North Carolina counties. It's made up of some South Carolina counties too, but if you just look at the 7 North Carolina counties, and then you look at Raleigh, which is made up of 3 counties. Those 10 counties, 10 out of 100, accounted for over 90% of the job growth between 2007 and 2016, and almost 90% of the GDP. And so, you're really looking at a disparate impact, if you will, of what's happened in the last 10 years in this state. It's almost all been at the 2 poles, if you will, the Piedmont Crescent along the I-85 corridor. The real reason this tax reform is coming up is the corporate side of things. We are out of whack versus the rest of the world. It puts our companies at a disadvantage when they sell in this country against imported goods, and it puts our companies at a disadvantage when they try to export and sell abroad. The way the system is, it just works against U.S. companies, both domestically and on the export side of things. And so we need to fix that. This legislation does deal with that directly and will change from serious disadvantage for U.S. companies selling in our domestic market and in our export markets. It'll change that from a disadvantage to actually an advantage for our companies. We'll have a cost advantage vis-a-vis all of our competitor countries. So that's number one. But in order to get that tax cut, you can't give it to one group, particularly companies, and not give it to everybody else. So we wind up with an individual tax cut along it. What I think people need to understand is anytime you lower rates, you're going to have to increase the base. The biggest tax cut in history was the Reagan tax cut back in 87, which took effect in 88. And we went from over 20 brackets and a very complicated tax system with lots of deductions and exemptions to basically just 2 brackets, 15 and 28%. And at that time, we lowered rates dramatically. The top rate was 71% going into that, dropped to 28%. That's pretty significant. But we increased the base as well. So despite the fact that we still had a lot of deductions that were available to us in the subsequent years from 88 to today, we lost more than we kept. So all kinds of deductions were taken away. The base was increased. Tax rates were lowered dramatically. That's what we're doing again. And there are losers and there are winners in this. There's no question about it. But it's not a universal. You cannot say this income group loses, this income group gains. Individuals in lower incomes will win, mostly win. Some might lose. Individuals in upper income brackets, some will win, some will lose. Whenever you make that adjustment to increase the base and lower rates and do away with deductions, exemptions, etc., you will have winners and losers that get treated differently.